Welcome to Digital Bestiary, the channel with the most interesting lore from various video games. In this video, we're going to be covering the Halo franchise, specifically the species known as Brutes. We'll talk about their history and some of the extremely dark events that led to their rapid rise to power within the Covenant. The Jiralhanae, or Brutes as humans call them, lived on the tropical planet Doisac. This harsh planet was covered in mostly rainforests and molten rocky mountainscapes with a fair amount of active volcanoes. There were also quite a few deserts and a couple seas of water as well. But despite this harsh, rugged environment, the Brutes loved their homeworld. These 9-foot-tall carnivorous beings evolved from tree-dwelling temperamental mammals. Humans often refer to them as apes since their appearance resembles that of a large primate. Brutes in their early stages of society could easily be looked at and written off as a savage race, mostly due to their behavior and nature. In fact, they were given the Latin name Cervus ferox by the Forerunners, which means wild slave. Their language also consists of many barks, roars, and growls. Their weaponry resembled primitive tools, often incorporating some sort of blade. However, despite their tribal-like appearance, they were considered a Tier 4 species in the scale the Forerunners and the Covenant used to gauge a species' technological advancements. Tier 4 would be considered Space Age. The Brutes' warlike nature, however, got in the way of further development as conflict broke out among their master packs. The Brute society is structured into multiple packs, but there were two main master packs that most of these fell into: the Rotol and the Veloth. The Rotol were more primitive and wanted to preserve the way of the Brutes. They hated new tech and felt that as a species, they had all become too dependent on the new technology. The Veloth, on the other hand, were far more sophisticated and open to new ideas, and felt the need for technological advancements to further their society. With such diverse mindsets, war inevitably broke out between the two meta-tribes that lasted roughly a decade. The Civil War took the worst route possible and ended in nuclear attacks. The Brutes set their own home planet ablaze, nearly causing the entire species to go extinct. The aftermath led to a complete societal collapse, setting the Brutes back hundreds of years in technological advancements. The Rotol, however, weren't too bothered by this setback since they didn't see the technology necessary anyways. In the year 2492, shortly after the Civil War had been over with, the now pre-industrial Brutes were rediscovering radio and rocket technology. This is when the Covenant first came into contact with the species. When the Covenant first arrived to Doisac, many Brutes in their primitive ways fought battles against the Covenant Empire. There were, however, packs that were quick to join the Covenant ranking system. One of these groups to join were led by the War Chieftain Macaques, who would later earn great respect in the Covenant military. The Brutes that put up a fight, however, were quickly wiped out, as they were outnumbered and far behind the Covenant technology. They didn't stand a chance. The Brutes that joined the Covenant smoothly transitioned into their ranks as mostly heavy infantry and shock troopers. The Brutes had long been in search of the meaning behind their existence, which made it easier for them to adopt the Covenant religion that involved worshipping the Forerunners. The transition of Brutes into the Covenant wasn't quite as smooth as it may have started. Some of the Sangheili or elites were a little cautious of the Brutes. A group of elites went in front of the High Council to voice these concerns. They claimed that the Brute pack mentality would cause conflict within the Covenant, as the Brutes were used to aggressively fighting their way to the top of any hierarchy system. The elites proposed to the prophets that Brutes showing any sign of peaceful urges would be praised for their actions repeatedly. The High Council saw where the elites were coming from and put restrictions on the technology that the Brutes were allowed to access. This didn't quite keep the peace, as there were still plenty of conflict between these elites and Brutes, and in fact, Brutes showed disdain towards all species in the Covenant except their leaders, the Sanshum, or prophets. The Brutes fought many battles in the Human Covenant War, taking commands from elites as subordinates to them. The elites looked down upon the Brutes, and their views on how to deal with human conflict never aligned. But nonetheless, they performed their duties in their ranks very well, and actually they were naturals in the battlefield. And specifically Tartarus, a Brute who fought in the first battle of the war, caught the eye of the High Prophet of Truth. The High Prophet had the most power of the three prophets who led the Covenant. Tartarus had always been a highly skilled brute, and at a young age on their home planet Doisac, took control of the entire Ratal Master Pack. Over time, the High Prophet, who grew tired of the conflict between elites and brutes, decided in the last few years of the war he wanted to prepare Tartarus to become the new authority for the Covenant military. The Prophet of Truth spoke with other prophets, and in the last few months of the war, they decided the brute's ferocity and unquestionable obedience earned them a promotion to the top of the military ranking system. This place had been occupied by the elites ever since the Covenant began, so this was a pretty big deal. Shipmasters and other high-ranking elites were all replaced with brutes. Truth, who now needed more brutes at his disposal, pardoned all brute prisoners in the Covenant, framing it as a celebration of the species' newly elevated status. This was a time of a huge uncertainty within the Covenant. To ease the elite's mind, the Prophet of Truth would tell them this decision was based on a few of their previous failures, including failing to stop the assassination of the Prophet of Regret, which, spoiler alert, was secretly arranged by the Prophet of Truth. Really, these were all just excuses to push the brutes up into their higher position. The decision still didn't go very well with many of the elites. In fact, right away there were elites in the High Council that threatened to resign their position in disagreement. As a species, the elites felt humiliated and insulted to see such a quick demotion in status. The Prophet of Truth, being a master of schemes, had been making plans with Tartarus in the shadows for decades. Truth didn't want another moderate prophet to be elected to take the place of the Prophet of Regret, and he knew this would happen if elites were still in the council. So, Truth handled this in the best way he knew how. On November 3rd, 2552, the Prophet of Truth ordered all elites who were members of the council to meet in the control room on the Halo 5 installation to prepare for the Great Journey, which in a nutshell is the Covenant's ultimate goal. However, after the elites gathered into the control room, Brute Captain Melkus arrived with multiple heavily armed guards. Instantly, Truth commanded the brutes to massacre all members of the council and former guardsmen. Every elite in the room was slaughtered and then smashed to pieces with gravity hammers, except one who managed to survive the deadly fall and escape. At this same moment, in a facility known as the Library on Halo Installation 5, Brute Chieftain Tartarus and his guards attempted to kill the elite arbiter Thel 'Vadam by throwing him into a massive pit, but not before retrieving the index from him as directed by the Prophet of Truth. They assumed they were successful tumbling the arbiter down the pit, but it would be later known that the arbiter would survive. These acts would be known as the start of the Great Schism, or the Civil War within the Covenant. The Prophet of Truth told the brutes to kill all elites on sight as they were revolting against the Covenant in their decision to promote the brutes. However, footage and word quickly spread among the elites, revealing the truth of them being slaughtered and forced out of the Covenant. Not long after this all started, the Prophet of Truth made his next move by commanding Tartarus to use the index to activate the Halo Installation 5. However, the Arbiter, commanding the elites who were now in a temporary alliance with the humans, managed to take out Tartarus before he could do so. After the Human Covenant War, the brutes began splintering into various factions, but we'll save that for another video. I hope you guys enjoyed the story of how the savage brutes quickly gained so much power in the galaxy. If you did, consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing so you're notified when I upload more. I will catch you guys in the next one, and as always, good luck and have fun.